Welcome to Blue Talks.
Thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to be here at Miami University. Thank you for having me. So for all of you who have solutions that you provide, I have some good news and I have some bad news. If you're selling your solutions, the bad news is they have no inherent value. Unfortunately, our solutions, we sometimes think we can just provide them for people, we can show it to them, they'll like it. That's living in the land of hope. Our solutions have no inherent value. The good news is that there's a way to have our solutions to be seen as having value. And it's all about the way that we can do some discovery and find out what it is that the customer is trying to do, or the client. You see, similar to beauty, value is in the eye of the beholder. However, beauty typically comes naturally, whereas value can actually be created. So this is best illustrated in a quick story that I experienced. It was something that I experienced when I was traveling for a while between around 2009 and 2014. I was doing a lot of international travel. And I remember one time I went to Singapore, and I had two more countries I was going to. I was going to Kuala Lumpur and then Sydney, Australia. Well, in the process of pulling my roller bag off the airplane in my first stop, I realized suddenly that the handle was broken on it. It had come apart. And if any of you have traveled with a roller bag with a broken handle, it's hard to do. Plus I had my computer bag slung over it and everything else. So I got to the hotel, I called up the front desk and I said, hey, I've got a problem with my suitcase. Is there somewhere I can take it to get it fixed? They said, how about if we send somebody up to your room to take a look at it? I thought, well, that's great. That's super handy. So about 5 minutes later, the doorbell rings. This was actually a hotel room that had a doorbell. The doorbell rang, and I looked through the peephole, and standing on the other side of the door was a woman about 5 foot tall in coveralls holding a 3 foot long bolt cutter in her hands with a smile on her face. And I'm thinking, well, this is going to be interesting. So I let her into the room, showed her where the suitcase was. She put the bolt cutter off to the side and she looked at it and she said, oh, I see what's happened. The screw has come off on the one side of the handle. Is it okay if I take the other screw and see if I can find one and fix it for you? And I said, sure, of course, that would be fantastic. So she took her bolt cutter, she took the screw, she left. About 10 minutes later, I get the doorbell again, look through, there she is. She comes in, puts the screw into the suitcase, and I'm on my way. Super happy. Tons of value, easy for me, fixed my problem, gave her a nice tip. I said, thank you. Now, what's the lesson in this story? Well, if any of you remember back 10, 15 years ago, whenever we'd travel, we might put a lock on the suitcase, a physical lock, a little tiny one, and have a key or a combination or something like that. So why did she bring the bolt cutter to the room? Because most likely, if somebody had a problem with their suitcase, it was because the lock was stuck on it. And the simplest thing was to cut the bolt. Now, luckily for me, she didn't just start going after my suitcase with the bolt cutter. She did some discovery. She asked some questions. She found out what my needs were. And she was able to take care of that by simply replacing the screw. So my question for all of you is, when we're showing our solutions, are we bringing our bolt cutter and starting to go at it, or are we asking some questions? And that's what can lead to the value. So what I want to show you really quickly here is the way that we can find value, and that's through discovery. There's two main things that we're going to look at. If you imagine a Venn diagram, where on this side there's a circle that represents the needs of your customer, the needs of your audience. And on this side, there's a circle that represents your solutions, the things that you could potentially provide. The overlap of those two is where value is. So our solutions by themselves have no inherent value. That bolt cutter has no inherent value. especially not to mention the fact that if it's used improperly. But all too often we try to just push our solutions out and hope that somebody's going to buy it. What we need to find out is what is it that they're trying to do. And in my case, I didn't need a bolt cutter, so she didn't use it. She found out that there was another need that I had. So when it comes to needs in real life, extending that out to your solutions, needs are typically a couple different things. One is a known need. Many times your client has a known need. They know there's a problem, there's something that they're trying to fix, there's some kind of gain that they're trying to achieve. That's a known need. And those are pretty sometimes easy. However, we still need to figure out, is that aligning with the solutions we can provide? Now, oftentimes our clients don't know what they need, or they might think they need something that's not quite the right thing. And this is where our experience can come in to help ask questions of them in terms of what are they trying to do? What are the outcomes they're expecting? And therefore we know what solutions to apply to that. Now, one thing that's really hard in sales, and I do sales, I did sales, I sell my sales transformation services. One thing that's hard to do is when we look at the needs, if there's no fit for our solutions, what's hard to do is to walk away. And that's what we need to do though. If the only solution she had was the bolt cutter, it would have done her no good. It would have done damage to start going at my suitcase with a bolt cutter. If she couldn't have helped me, she would have just said, I'm sorry, I can't help you, but I recommend maybe you could go here to get help. So there's also unknown needs. They don't know what they don't know. And many clients are in that situation. So how do we help them? We help them by our experience of what we've seen with others. And what I often do is use a technique we call vision generation, where when we're talking with somebody and they say, I have this thing in mind, and it might not be the exact thing that we're looking for solving for them, or there might be other things that they might not be aware of. We can ask some questions of them like, well, others like you have said that. They also had this on their mind, or they are thinking about this, or others have thought about these things. So when we do that, we're starting to uncover more needs that our solutions can align with. Now, what about our solutions and that overlap we're trying to achieve? Well, our solution is more than just our solution. We may think initially it's the solution, the thing, the software, the hardware, the procedures, the processes. There's more to it than that. So the main thing to think about is the bolt cutter. But there's more to it. There's our experience, the experience that we bring to help with where we've seen others go through this. And this is where we can say things like, when others like you have said that, this is also what they were thinking about. How does that compare to your situation? Does that seem like something that would be a help for you? That's our experience that we bring to the table. We can also bring, if you're working for a company or anything that you have that forms the solutions that you provide, that is also something that we bring with us. So I work with a lot of clients that are very, very big companies. And sometimes they forget that, the reputation of the company, the financial stability of the company, the way that they've helped other clients, even the assets they have on their website, those are all things that are part of a solution. So our job is to find out what are the needs by doing discovery, figure out what solutions you offer, not just the solution, but also you personally and your experience, your company's experience, and the things the company brings, and then where that overlap is where the value is. Now, that might point to a certain amount of value. One of our goals in sales would be to expand that value, because the more value that they see, the more they are going to want to work with you. Part of our job is to get those circles to overlap more so that they like what you have, they want what you have. And in fact, it turns it not just from a sell, but it turns into a buy. That's the ideal situation where the client is literally asking you to help them because they see that you have things that they can use, because we've looked at their needs, not just tried to force a bunch of things on them or throw it against the wall to see if it sticks. So by doing a little bit of discovery and understanding what it is that the client wants, we can better address their needs, turn it from a sell into a buy, and we'll be able to help turn it from a push, where we tend to want to push or throw the stuff out there, and instead make it a pull. As soon as they start to pull, as soon as they realize that we have their best interests in mind and that the needs are what are good for them, not just because we want a sale. Now that's going to be something that helps them. It will help you. You'll generate more money, more revenue, more margin. We'll have happier customers, and those customers will come back to us looking for more help because we didn't just throw our solutions on them. So the good news is we can generate value from our solutions, even though the solutions themselves have no inherent value. So I just ask you today, do the discovery, find out the needs, have some fun with it, and grow your business. Thank you so much. Appreciate the time.